Happy Father's Day. I'm not sure how happy you'll think it is when I'm done with this. What I love about this shot is this is long before the Addams Family, and we're reading the TV guide. I love that. Today is Father's Day. For many of us, that's a two-sided event. We honor our fathers, and our children honor us. I loved my father. I know he loved me. And we got along great. I love my son, and I know he loves me. So why is this day so sad for me? I think because a lot is expected of dads. I know times have changed, and this isn't always the case, but I was brought up to believe that the father provides, protects, and nurtures. When I was a kid, there was a show called Father Knows Best. Andy Griffith ran Mayberry and raised Opie without Opie's mother. And Ward Cleaver never took his tie off. This was the template for being a dad when I was a kid. I wouldn't say a no-nonsense dad because my dad was an actor, an entertainer, and a funny guy, and he would often spread nonsense when it suited him. I'm sure most of all you know that my father played Lurch in the 60s TV series The Addams Family, and that character may seem somewhat limited in what he could do. But at home, my sister Cameron and I had the best seats in the world when we'd watch Dad rehearse or improvise or figure out funny things to do. Dad taught me to let creativity flow, to trust and follow my intuition. Also, to resist the temptation to compromise in order to fit in. He instilled in me the feeling and belief that I was worthy, and that while one can always improve, I was good to go. I know that I was successful at some things in life because Dad helped me believe I could do anything. We shot baskets together, competed in car rallies, bet the horses at Hollywood Park. Mom, there was one day you didn't know about. I was supposed to be at school. We went to see every major film within a week of its premiere. I had a couple of best friends, and Dad was a very special best friend. This part's tough. I was in college at Berkeley and working out in the weight room when someone came looking for me to alert me to a phone call from home. Several hours later, I was by my father's side as he lay in a coma at St. Vincent's Hospital. 2 weeks later, at the age of 46, he passed. We held an Irish wake and celebrated his life with stories, crying, and laughter. I remember returning to the Cal campus and feeling genuinely puzzled that people were proceeding as though life were the same. It was not. Dad was gone. It was a different world now. Exodus 20:12, the fifth of the 10 Commandments, instructs, "Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long upon the land which the Lord your God giveth thee." I have read that this commandment emphasizes the importance of respecting and caring for parents, with the promise of a long life as a reward for such service. I often say that the silver lining in Dad's passing at such an early age is that all my memories of him are of a robust, capable, and powerful man. Imagine taking on that guy. I didn't have the opportunity to watch him age when maybe he could have come to rely on my assistance, as the fifth commandment urges. I fully respected his authority and wisdom, and I would have been front and center if he needed me, but he never really did, not that way. I felt cheated in a way. He passed too soon, and I didn't get to discharge my duties as a dutiful son to take care of him in his old age. It was many years ago that I was the age Dad was when he passed, but I always think of myself as the young son of my bigger-than-life dad. He passed too soon, but it is the circle of life, and he passed before me. For many years, the thought of having my own children worried me. I thought there was a minimal chance that this or that may occur and the baby could have problems. But when you add up all those different thises or that's, the chances that something could go wrong don't seem all that remote. And I was worried. When you don't know the child yet, it's easy to impersonalize them. But as parents know, the moment that child is born, you're all in. I certainly was. Trevor, first child, was an easy baby. He slept, he didn't fuss much, he was attentive and fun. My worries faded away. Fantastic. We dodged a bullet. Life was great. Taking a lesson from my father, Trevor and I did everything together. When I was a basketball coach at Taft High School in Woodland Hills, I used to get the keys to the gym on Sunday morning, and we would have the building to ourselves. It was incredible. Back before I joined this church, these Sunday mornings with Trevor felt like church. When she was old enough to run around on her own, Sammy joined us, and the two of them had such a good time playing some basketball and investigating that hidden world under the bleachers. Trevor's first love was basketball, and he showed some promise early. One day at practice, Henry Bibby, then coach of the USC Trojans, stood at a corner of the gym watching Trevor shoot free throws. Trevor didn't know who this guy was. He didn't miss one while Bibby was watching, and Coach asked Trevor how soon he could recruit him. Being a UCLA grad, I always hated a USC until that moment, and then I loved at least Henry Bibby. When Trevor was 6 years old, I decided we should give golf a try, and we took our first lesson together. He loved it and stuck with it. When he was in middle school, he announced that his future was in the NBA. But if that didn't work out, his backup was as a professional golfer. Okay, Trevor, good for you, his mother and I said with a grin. Fast forward several years, and Trevor is now a PGA golfer who's won 3 professional tournaments. As I advised his bride Taylor at their wedding, make sure to kick Trevor in the butt now and then. Don't let him settle for second best the way he did with his career. That got a good laugh. We continue to play golf together. We play guitar, and we tell stories about Sammy. This is the day after Trevor's and Taylor's wedding. All right, this is going to be really tough. Samantha was born 2 years after Trevor. She was little but hungry all the time, and she wasn't gaining weight. At 2 months old, she was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis, a sinister and fatal condition which took Sammy's life at the age of 23. My reaction to that news really troubled me. All of a sudden, I saw my daughter as a space alien. I actually felt distant from her. I saw an increasingly tough life for her and a very different life path for Andrea, Trevor, and me. I didn't like it, and it bothered me a lot that I thought about that at all. My fatherhood was challenged. Fatherhood or parenthood is easy when it's easy. Of course, the test comes when it's not. And I know I'm not the only one. Many fathers and mothers here understand that only too well. Sammy's therapies weren't easy and took time, but over the days, what at first felt like a burden became my favorite part of the day. We became so close. I would arrange her on my lap in different figurations and pound pretty hard on her torso to loosen the phlegm clinging to and damaging her lungs. We did this every day of her life since she was 2 months old, so she knew nothing different. And it didn't seem particularly burdensome to her because it was normal. Certainly, she noticed Trevor and her friends didn't do this, but she never complained. Sammy was the cheeriest, most positive person I've ever known. How can that be? And yet she had every reason to be dour and resentful. She was small and slight. She had trouble breathing, coughed a lot, and couldn't do all the things her friends could. But she was a shining light, an unstoppable force. There are times when you're in the presence of someone and you can feel a difference, that person is special. She was that someone. I've often said that a worthy measure of a person is how many people claim that person as their best friend. I can think of several men who described Dad as their best friend, and I can think of several women who considered Sammy their best friend. She had a different way of looking at life. You couldn't get away with BS around Sam. She saw right through it. The many distractions would take up much of your and my time just weren't on her radar. My favorite Sammy as warrior story is from her sorority days at CSUN. Her sorority buddied up with a certain fraternity, and I came to know a lot of those guys and liked and still like them. Good guys. They liked and protected Sammy. But they wouldn't give away her secrets. So occasionally, I love this, occasionally there'd be some big guy, maybe on the football team, who'd be at a weekend party at the frat, and the big guy would hear that there's a girl at the party who could drink him under the table. You can imagine the reaction. Sammy, all of 90 pounds, would sit across a table from some 200-plus pound young man, likely already well-advised and versed in the alcohol-imbibing arts, and what unfolded was predictable. One of the effects of cystic fibrosis is a very different way the body digests food. The enzymes our gut uses to break down and synthesize food come from the pancreas, which is significantly blocked by the sticky phlegm that CF causes. Interestingly, though, another effect is the different way alcohol is processed. And Sammy could drink and not feel the normal effects as quickly. She would down her 6th drink and watch her young man competitor melt to the floor as her sorority and frat buds cheered her on. I just always love hearing that. Sammy spent almost a third of her life in the hospital. About 11 years ago, Tarzana Providence Hospital made a commercial which features Sam and her story. Here's that commercial.
I really love roller coasters. When you go up the incline waiting for that drop, you're scared for a little bit, but then all of the energy you get from it, the adrenaline, you feel almost invincible. I was diagnosed with cystic fibrosis when I was 11 weeks old. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic, mostly lung disease. It bases off of a salt deficiency, and that affects the mucus in my body being thicker, and it mostly affects my lungs. All that thick mucus builds up, and I get bacteria, and I get lung infections pretty frequently, and so that's why I have to go into the hospital. As of right now, CF is uncurable. There's only treatments, and so I have to live my life knowing that unless they come up with a cure, CF will be the reason I die. I go into Providence a few times a year, but there was one year where it got pretty bad, and I was going into Providence about every 3 or 4 weeks. Providence is most definitely my second home, 100%. The doctors and nurses over at Providence, they know me. They've treated me for so many years that when I'm not there, they ask about me. They're amazing, and my life would be so much different if I didn't have them. CF definitely hinders what I can do, and it prevents me from having the most normal life, but I am not going to let my disease become me, and I am definitely not going to let my CF defeat me, especially not today. Today is all about the roller coaster and the adrenaline.
Experience specialized care. Experience Providence Pediatric Care.
Thank you, Providence, for that. Of course, being Sammy's father was extremely difficult, toughest thing I've ever had to do, and I know I'm not even finished doing that. During her later teen years, when she was in college, I had to learn to start saying goodbye to her. The writing was on the wall, and the double lung transplant she underwent was only mildly successful, extending her life maybe another year. Saying goodbye is hard enough. Saying goodbye over time is even rougher, I think. She passed 7 years ago. I never felt so rudderless and adrift in my life. I drove home and experienced one of the most spiritual moments in my life. How does the world know? I left the hospital without breath, without hope. Everything was gray and lifeless. I couldn't feel the wind, but I was never more aware of time. Each moment an eternity, my entire life a blink of an eye. The clock records that sometime earlier I held my daughter in my arms as she drifted away. I whispered, "I love you, Daddy," her last words to me. I don't remember the short ride home. My senses no longer informed, and at first I didn't notice the crow as I pulled into my parking spot. The still birds seemed not to notice me or my car, which came to rest just a few feet away. I wondered if it was dead. It didn't move. It stood on the fence rail like a sentinel, guarding one world from another. My thoughts and emotions were no longer mine as they swirled and swept my mind to random places. But the crow centered me. Why here? Why now? Why didn't it move? Against the gray of the day, its obsidian feathers glistened, as black as something forgotten. What were its thoughts? I sensed it was transitioning, moving in ways we could not see. Maybe it was with Sammy, her co-pilot to the unimaginable, the crow's beak piercing the purgatory while Sammy glides in its slipstream, soaring above the fray, her eyes wide open, gulping clean, pure oxygen. The thought captivated me and allowed me to focus. I looked down to take my keys, and when I looked up, the crow was gone. No bird in sight. They were both gone now, and through my tears, I muttered over and over, "Godspeed, sweetheart." Being a father is both tough and the greatest calling a man can answer. I feel I've experienced fatherhood in many ways, and the challenges I faced being a son and father have made me a better person. Sammy's death led to some good things. My desire to find a space to sit and commune with her led me to finding this Bethel church when it was on Burbank and Encino. And including my playing bass in my church band was the description in my dating profile, which led to meeting Christy. Church and Christy, two of the greatest things in my life. Thank you, Sammy, and thank you, Mylene. I started this talk with the question, why do I feel so sad on Father's Day? I've probably answered that. But why do I talk about Father's Day this way? From a religious Christian perspective, my point is it's impossible to live up to the expectations of fatherhood. I was supposed to protect and nurture her. At the least, I was supposed to provide a path to a normal lifespan. I failed at that. I know it's genetics. They didn't even test for CF back then, but that does not relieve me of my perceived obligation, nor my admission I failed her. I did my best. There was little I could do. And I think that's the lesson for Christians and persons of faith. We are imperfect. Something as immutable as our genes are not under our control and may cause harm where none is intended. The perfection that Jesus, God, and the fifth commandment require of us are goals. They direct us on our life pathways, and if now and then we can achieve things along the way that satisfy the requirement, yay for us. We're just doing the best we can. Thank you. Make sure you kiss a loved one tonight.